Right, this is Rita Carr, Chair of the Nantucket Historical Commission, calling the April 18th meeting of the Nantucket Historical Commission to order at 10:03 a.m. This meeting is being conducted in a hybrid format, so and anything shared on the screen, if you're online, will be recorded, and the meeting is being recorded. So commissioners, please, when I call your name, please confirm that you're present and can hear me. So we have Clement Durkee.
Here and can hear you.
Thank you. Sarah McLean.
Here.
Abby DeMolina.
Here.
And then I'm here in person. We don't have anybody else, right?
Nope.
Nobody else on Zoom? Okay. And then here in the room, we have our staff. Holly Backus is here.
Present.
And members of the public, we have Gail Walker from Nantucket Lights and Mary Bergman from Nantucket Preservation Trust. Is there any public comment for items not on the agenda? Okay, seeing none. Holly, your staff update?
Yes, thank you. So wanted to let the commission know I'm working diligently with MHC on getting our reimbursement actually for the fiscal 22 project.
Okay.
So that's will be money back to us as taxpayers, to be great. And then I wanted to mention, I noticed a few of us were in the NAPC webinar this week, yesterday, and there's another follow-up on next week about Windows. And I just want to make a mention for anybody who did attend to please send me your little certificates that you get. I want to keep track of that for CLG purposes. And thank you for those that continue to do that. And then something else I brought up to the HTC, as you all are aware, the commission reviews historic determinations. And they'll also review them for not just anything under the building code exemptions for historic structures, but also if we over here review for historic tax credits. And to streamline the HDC side process, historic termination, I've come up with a form that I'm hoping that the HDC is going to bless. This is something that, if we all know that there's DOER, stretch code things, preservation easement, something to make it a little more easier when those COAs come in instead of that big cumbersome form. So there's something I wanted to bring up to this board on that. And that's it for right now.
Great. Okay, thank you. So then first on the agenda, we have Gail Walker here from Nantucket Lights to talk to us about the downtown street lighting fixtures and compliance with Article 76 from the 2023 town meeting. So Gail, would you like to take it away?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning, everybody. For the record, I am Gail Walker, the president and founder of Nantucket Lights. And that's...
Can I just interrupt you for one moment
Yes.
to just let Abby for the minutes? Angus just arrived.
Thank you.
Okay. Sorry, Gail. Thank you.
Sure. So I just to remind everybody what Nantucket Lights is, it's a citizen advocacy group exclusively dedicated to reducing light pollution on the island to preserve our dark skies, and it was founded in 2021. I appreciate the opportunity today to talk to you about the decorative street lights owned by the town and the requirements for upgrading those under the new outdoor lighting bylaw that was adopted in 2023, pursuant to my citizen warrant article, which was article number 76. After briefly reviewing those requirements, I'd like to give you some updates on where things stand with the pilot fixtures that are under consideration and ask for your feedback on a few things. I thought some visuals would help, so I have some PowerPoint slides that Holly is going to manage for me. Thank you, Holly. This will be the third time I've actually spoken to this commission about light pollution and the importance of dark sky streetlights. The first two times, as indicated on this slide, were in October 2022 and January 2023. But I believe only a few of you were on the commission at that time. So some of what I'm going to say today might cover some of what was said before, though I'm going to be brief in any overlap. I encourage those who who haven't watched the recording of the previous presentations to do that when you get a chance, for more details. Next slide, please. So,
We can't see the slides on the screen.
Oh, all right, hold on one second.
I mean, Gail, we had your presentation, so we weren't totally lost. I just didn't know if we're recording the meeting to have it.
I emailed it.
Sorry to interrupt.
okay, so
Let me know if you can't see it.
can you see it now?
Yeah,
Yes.
now we can
Awesome.
see it. So
Thank
thank you.
you.
I just wanted to make sure we were showing what you were talking to as you're talking.
Thank
Okay.
you, Abby.
It sounds like you were able to see the previous slide from what Holly sent you. So I'll just keep
Yeah,
going.
we have a we all have copies of the presentation. We just wanted
Oh,
to for the
terrific, terrific. Okay, well, at the January 2023 meeting, I explained the new stricter outdoor lighting bylaw that I proposed as a citizen warrant article for the 2023 annual town meeting. And after my presentation and some discussion, the NHC members at that time voted to endorse the proposal, including the proposed requirements for decorative streetlights. My proposal was adopted at town meeting and became effective January 1st of last year, and it's now chapter 102 of the Nantucket Code. It applies to all outdoor lighting owned by the town, as well as outdoor lighting owned by homeowners and businesses. In other words, all outdoor lighting on the island, though there is a grace period for much of the lighting that was installed before the bylaw went into effect. For the decorative streetlights, the deadline for bringing all of them into compliance with the new regulations is January 1st, 2029, which is about 3.5 years from now. Next slide, please. So the purpose of the new regulations stated in section 102.1 shown here is basically to address all the harm caused by excessive or poorly designed outdoor lighting. In a nutshell, light pollution on Nantucket is making the stars harder to see, adversely affecting quality of life, reducing Nantucket's historic charm, creating unsafe glare in some instances, harming wildlife that needs a natural night to thrive, and including plants and pollinators and insects and birds. It's posing a risk to human health and it's wasting energy. Next slide, please. So I could spend an hour just talking about the harm from outdoor lighting, but in lieu of that, since time is short, I'll refer you to the many articles that have been written about it if you want to take a deeper dive. The 3 articles shown on this slide are just some of the ones that have been published in the last 5 months. Next slide. So the new law is grounded in what's called the 5 principles of responsible outdoor lighting that were adopted in 2020 by the Dark Sky International and the Illuminating Engineering Society. And those, as you can see, are all outdoor lighting should be useful and have a clear purpose. All outdoor lighting should be targeted and directed to light only the area that needs lighting, particularly important for streetlights. Low light levels should be used, no brighter than necessary. The lighting should be controlled so that it is dimmed when possible and turned off when not needed. And warm color temperature should be used whenever possible. The goal is not to eliminate all outdoor lighting, but rather to have smarter, more thoughtful outdoor lighting. Next slide, please. These principles translate into 4 aspects of outdoor lighting that need to be controlled to minimize the harm from artificial light at night. Shielding, color temperature, light intensity or brightness, and the timing of the lighting. Next slide, please. And here's how Nantucket's new outdoor lighting bylaw addresses each of those aspects. All outdoor lighting must comply with these 4 requirements unless it falls within an exception or exemption. It must be fully shielded if the lumen output is more than 600 lumens. So that would be true for street lights. The color temperature must be 2700 Kelvin or less. Must not exceed specified limits on brightness as measured in lumens, and it must be turned off during certain hours. Next slide, please. And beyond the general requirements, there are additional requirements under the bylaw for certain types of lighting, including for streetlights. This side lists all the requirements for decorative streetlights, are the most important ones. And most important for today's discussion is the so-called bug rating requirement. And that is a requirement that restricts how much backlighting, uplighting, and glare that can be. And the bug rating can't exceed B1, U0, G1, And that U0 is particularly important for the discussion today. That means there can be zero uplighting with the decorative streetlights under the bylaw. Next slide, please. Before I go on, this point that was made at the October 2022 meeting, I think warrants repeating. Basically, light from an unshielded fixture can travel up to 120 miles away, just by the nature of light. And so with respect to the decorative streetlights owned by the town that we're going to talk about today, that means that unshielded fixtures in the historic districts where they are primarily located can negatively impact the night sky for the whole island. Next slide, please. So this slide shows how dark sky decorative streetlights are designed to meet that bug requirement I just mentioned, to get the zero uplighting. The light source is completely hidden under a cap. It's all moved up under that black part at the top. A frosted panel is installed under the light source to minimize glare. And there are no vertical glass panes or globe to reflect the light up or outwards. Next slide, please. Last fall, I was finally able to manage to get a loan of a dark sky version of the Victorian style decorative streetlights that are on Main Street and other streets downtown. That was installed in front of the Ralph Lauren store as a pilot. And this was the fixture that a WPI student team solicited feedback on in November, which I'll discuss in a minute. Hopefully, you've had a chance to check this out in person. Next slide. And there are other styles of dark sky decorative streetlights already on the island that you can check out in person. These are privately owned. They were installed by either a homeowners association or a business. And this is just some. This isn't all of the ones I've seen around. The one shown in Sconset on the far left is most like the colonial style fixtures owned by the town, which you can find all over Sconset as well in some streets downtown and Mid-Island. Next slide, please. As part of a WPI student project co-sponsored by the town and Nantucket Lights last fall, WPI students conducted a survey about the pilot Victorian style fixture that was installed on Main Street. As you may recall, if you participated, participants were asked to respond to a series of questions about the decorative streetlight at the fountain, which has a globe, and the pilot dark sky fixture without a globe. They're both shown in that picture. Only 56 people participated. 50% were year-round residents, 13% of those were seasonal residents, and 38% of those were tourists. But the input from this group supported installation of dark sky globeless fixtures after the benefits were explained. 63% said they would support the installation of the globeless pilot fixture on Main Street to be more dark sky friendly. And 57% said mitigation of light pollution should be prioritized by the town when selecting new decorative street lights. Next slide, please. And I thought I should mention at this point that the town did a separate shorter survey last month via a QR code on the fixture poll. The results haven't been announced yet, but I question the value of this one since the reason for the new look wasn't explained to participants, which in my opinion is really important since to me it's a balancing of the benefits versus the benefits of the dark sky streetlight versus the need for historical preservation. Next slide, please. And this brings me to the crux of where things stand. Does the dark sky fixture on Main Street look sufficiently historical, taking into account the benefits of it? DPW, to its credit, wants to comply with the bylaw and lead by example, but understandably doesn't want a backlash if it installs them. So we would like your thoughts on this. And a few things to consider when you take a position on this. Nantucket's designation as a National Historic Landmark would not be jeopardized. That was confirmed by the National Park Service that oversees that program. Internal elements can be added to make it look more like the existing fixtures on Main Street without changing its bug rating, if that's important to you. However, adding a globe would increase the bug rating to B1, U2, G1. So from 0 uplighting to an uplighting value of 2, which is a big jump. An amendment to the outdoor lighting bylaw would be needed, and it might disqualify Nantucket from being certified as an international dark sky community. And I'm going to talk about both those last two design elements next in more detail. Next slide, please. So regarding the internal elements or the lack thereof in the pilot fixture, some participants in the WPI student study commented that they felt the dark sky fixture needed some, quote, guts, unquote, to make it look more historical. In other words, more like the existing streetlights on Main Street. When I relayed that to the manufacturer of that pilot fixture, they came up with some new designs for your consideration in case you agreed with that sentiment. It turns out that the existing streetlights on Main Street are not all designed the same way. I found 3 different configurations. So they designed a fixture to mimic each one of those. What I've called option A on the slide is similar to the fixture that's at the fixture. Option B and C are similar to HPS fixtures found on Main Street, and those are shown to the left of each one. The next 3 slides have larger images of these options so you can better see the details of each. So Holly, if you'll just advance, this is the one that's closest to what the fixture at the fountain looks like. Next slide. Next, is that, are you? Yeah, that'd be. And this is one similar to some of the HPS fixtures on Main Street. And next slide, C. Oops, isn't that funny that when I transferred it to you, the photo flipped. That's funny. Okay. But anyway, this one is similar to some of the other HPS fixtures on Main Street. So the question, next slide, please. Let's show again all 3. So the question becomes for this commission, do you agree that the pilot Victorian style fixture needs more guts or internal elements to look more historical? And if so, which option would you prefer? Which one looks most historical to you, since not all of them on Main Street are not the same? And if you think the design needs to be tweaked in some way, representatives of the manufacturer of the pilot fixture have offered to come to your May meeting to discuss this with you directly. But before hearing your thoughts on that, let me say a few more things about globes versus no globes. Next slide, please. As I mentioned before, adding a globe to the Victorian style fixture would increase its bug rating to B1, U2, G1. That would not only violate the outdoor lighting bylaw as it now stands, but might also disqualify Nantucket from being certified as an international dark sky community, which is the ultimate goal of Nantucket Lights. So that's a coveted distinction awarded by Dark Sky International to communities that demonstrate a quote, exceptional dedication to the preservation of the night sky through the implementation and enforcement of a quality outdoor lighting ordinance, dark sky education, and citizen support of dark skies, unquote. Among other things, dark sky streetlights, in other words, streetlights with 0 uplighting, are generally required to qualify for that certification. The photoshopped photo on the right is a rough simulation of what Main Street would look like with the dark sky streetlights. This was photoshopped by me. I'm an amateur at this, but I just basically replaced all the balls of light with the dark sky fixture. So next slide. Personally, I like the look of the globeless fixtures. I think it gives the Main Street sort of a softer look. But since some think it looks too modern for Nantucket, at my request, Dark Sky International is considering making an exception to at least allow fixtures with globes on Main Street. They're waiting for the photometrics of the fixture with a globe before making a final decision. They just want to see photometrics as a lab test that shows where the light is being projected and how much glare and everything there is. So just take that into account, please, when you think about globe versus no globe. Next slide, please. So if Dark Sky International agrees to an exception for Main Street, and I'm choosing to be optimistic for those who are concerned about this, What we propose is installing the dark sky colonial style fixture with glass panes everywhere else, so that only the fixtures that have uplighting are on Main Street, and that would be from Zero Main to the Monument. There's 44 of those, and everywhere else there's roughly 160. The town-owned decorative streetlights are located throughout the island, but primarily in the downtown historic core and in Sconset. The colonial style fixtures are what's in Sconset already. Everywhere else besides Main Street, it's a mix of colonial style and Victorian style fixtures. Sometimes you'll see both on the same street. I personally think having more consistency would be a good idea, and it would also reduce the light pollution, not having glass on those fixtures. Next slide. If you want to see where all the town-owned decorative streetlights are located, there's an interactive map on the town's website that shows this, in case you weren't aware of that. Unfortunately, it's not coded to show which style each is, but for most of them, you can access a photo to find that out. You would just click on the dot. Next slide. So that concludes my prepared remarks. And here sums up the 3 things we would love your feedback on. And of course, I'd be happy to answer any questions you have. So the first, and again, something got lost in translation, but the first is, how do you feel about globes or no globes on Main Street? How do you feel about the proposed compromise if Dark Sky International agrees to make an exception for the fixtures on Main Street? Do you think more internal elements need to be added to the Victorian style fixture to make it look more historical? And if so, which option presented by Spring City would you think is most appropriate?
All right, thank you very much. Is there anyone who would like to kick off the discussion? Any thoughts among?
Back to.
Well, Madam Chair, I have some thoughts.
Thank you, Clement.
This is Clement. I like the globe, and I never would have thought of this, makes a huge difference. The glass globe just really changes the whole visual impact of the lights. So I don't know, I worry about kind of maintenance. I mean, what is the purpose of the globe? Just to protect the light? I know it makes the light more intense, but it doesn't seem to really do anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, Clement, would you like an answer from Gail?
Yeah.
If I could answer that. So the globe original purpose obviously was to protect the candle or the gas flame. And over time, we went to HPS and now LED. It actually doesn't serve a purpose. And I sort of should have thought to mention that, but the lack of globe, according to the manufacturer, actually reduces the maintenance needs. Obviously, you don't have to replace broken glass. You don't have to clean the glass. And you don't need the glass, apparently, to protect the elements of the fixture from the wind because they're all tucked up under that cap. So it actually doesn't serve a purpose. And you're also right, Clement, it just creates, by all the reflection, it just makes a big ball of light. If you could show Holly that slide where I think it's that one. It just is a big ball of light. And it's actually worse with the colonial style ones that are in Sconset, that you're most familiar with, Clement, I think. Because of the way the glass is angled, it reflects even more than the globe.
Well, so I mean, it's nice of us to say that we're staying historic. Of course, you could pick a different era, and the lights on Main Street, I assume, would be different. These are the ones we're dealing with. It's kind of like, how can you deny that lighting has changed over the years? I mean, you've still got the basic structure. So I would probably like to go without the globe because of the dramatic difference in reflection and refraction. The other thing that I noticed is all of the, well, not all of them, but the ones in Wisconsin have the dark matte top. These ones that are proposed for Main Street have this white top. I don't understand that. And maybe that's because that was what was there. But why couldn't we put a black matte top on top of those? And I guess no globe. That's maybe where I'm headed.
Again, if I could
Yes,
answer,
please.
yes, that's a design that's a design preference. You could specify that. I think, they made the pilot to try to look most like what's on Main Street now. And, right, so I think a lot of the HPS actually have it where that top part actually is a little, translucent, is that the right word, where the light actually goes up through that glow? And the one at the fountain, which is LED, to keep the light from going up even more, they put a solid, Angus, what's the right word? They put something where the light wouldn't go through the cap, but it could definitely be made black.
That would be my preference. I'm not sure why, but I just object to the white. But so thanks. No, Gail, you've done enormous amounts of research in all of this and so much work. So I really appreciate your help.
Thank you.
When you look at those two things, the dark sky fixtures, you can see so much more of the trees and the sky between the trees, and it's dramatic. So
Sorry, just for the record, Clement, I have to say, when I photoshopped, all I did was replace the fixture, so I didn't mess with the background. Presumably,
it just
so-
looks like you did.
no, I didn't. It's that because your eye is drawn to that big glary ball.
Right.
If you did have these dark sky globeless fixtures on Main Street, it would help bring back the stars at night.
Yeah. You're right about that. I didn't think about that, but it even tricks my eye looking at it now without your manipulating the background. I don't know, those chimney things are not, I don't think we need those at all.
Are you talking about internal elements?
No, that little, the chimney on the option C. Once again, we're trying to make it like it's protecting the candle, which isn't necessary. So anyway, I love hearing other people's comments.
Yeah, thank you, Clement. Abby?
Hi, I just had a question. I know when we had the previous presentation, Gail, you had shown some fixtures in other communities, because I guess my only concern is if it's unsafe, it's too dark and people can't see where they're walking. So I was just wondering if you had, because I believe in one of the previous presentations, you had this bridge in, I want to say Cambridge, maybe something like that. And so
Yes.
if we were able to see the examples, and again, as long as it's safe, I would be supportive of removing the globe if it's, people can still see and still walk, because the cobblestones are a little hazardous to traverse. But at the same time, like in the middle of the night, I don't know how many people are walking by the fountain either. You know what I mean? Like, so I guess that would be my only concern.
May I respond? Yes, I know it's formality, I'm supposed to go through you, right? So that, good memory, Abby. So yeah, the presentation, I think the first one, I invited Jane Slade from Backlines, and she showed a picture of these dark sky streetlights on a bridge in Cambridge. And she did show how the light evenly covered it. The easiest, I think the best way to say this is the lack of the globe and the way these are designed does not decrease the light shining on the sidewalk. It's just removing the light that's going up into the sky and onto buildings.
Okay, so then I guess that kind of answers my question, and I would be supportive as well, is as long as it's, like you said, I guess that makes sense because all the lighting's going downward. So as long as it's covering, people can see where they're walking. To your point, do we need to be lighting upward? The answer is obviously no, not really. And so in that case, then I would be supportive.
I'd like to add something too, that's relevant to what you just said. the LED fixtures, unlike the HPS fixtures, can be adjusted per fixture through a computer. And so like if you need the one at the fountain to be a little brighter because it's in the middle of the street, that can be brighter, but the ones on the sides, the sidewalks can be less bright. So it can be adjusted fixture by fixture, which is one of the great things about LED. The pilot fixture is actually dimmed to, I think, I forgot now, 30% or something of its capacity, its total capacity. So, and nobody commented that this seemed less bright or unsafe. And it often depends where it is. Like that one was right outside the Ralph Lauren shop, which has its lights on in the evening. If you had another place where you didn't have a shop, maybe you do want it a little brighter, but that's the great thing about it. It could be regulated fixture by fixture. And in an emergency situation, if there was construction or for some reason you need a brighter light at that moment, it's a matter of going into a program and increasing the brightness of that fixture. But on the other side of it is if it's right beside a home, like in the historic district of Sconset, where those streetlights, those fixtures are right outside people's bedroom window. If somebody complains, that particular one could be dimmed lower than somewhere else.
That's a great benefit. So Sarah?
You're muted.
Yeah, oh, yeah, we
Okay,
can hear you.
there we go. So I was just thinking from a, I don't know, cost perspective, usability perspective, I would opt to go with the one that has the less guts to it, that's more simple. I think if we get into the option A, B, C that we're looking at here, we're trying to sort of fake an interior, which in my mind is not necessarily the best way to deal with historic, preservation, whatever it is. So if we want to have a light fixture that, still is in keeping, I don't necessarily think we need to go all the way. Not to mention it saves a lot of cost, less things to break, less things to, if something gets knocked, it's not a problem in terms of what they're dealing with. I do agree that maybe not having the globe is a good idea. And in terms of paint, I would say if we're painting them, maybe the gloss black, which is, I believe, what's existing, and then the whole thing would be that, versus like trying to have another color that gets dirty over time, or at least all of it is the same thing. I definitely would want to get away from, kind of what happened when they painted the brown things on the telephone poles, and then now it's all peeling. Obviously that wouldn't be the case here, but I'm just thinking, keep things sort of as consistent as possible. Your eye tends to like repetition, and then, without the globe and without the funny little things on the top, I think that's enough given what we have going on in our streetscape already. So anyway, that's kind of my thoughts on that.
Thank you, Sarah.
Gail, I had a question about option C. With that
Holly,
internal,
could you move it to where we can see option C a little better?
in that internal globe, does that affect the U of the bug rating?
That glass in the middle,
Yeah,
they say it won't.
interesting.
I guess because it's small enough
Yeah,
and where it's located,
right.
but they would, if that's was what your preference would be, they would have to actually build one and test it in the lab.
I was just curious because my guess is that would probably catch the light in a way that it would simulate the light was coming from that in a way, which I think would make it feel more in keeping with the whole rest of the fixture that is from another era. I think for me
So
that
you would prefer this?
I'm not sure, but it seems like if glass is used down below the light where it's not shielded, it doesn't seem like it would be accomplishing the goal. if it were, that might be an interesting, proposition. But for me, it's thinking about this holistically, the whole picture, the streetscape, the stand, it all, the whole look of it. And for me, it's, first of all, I wish that Main Street were the worst of
Yes.
the island's light pollution.
Yeah.
And then it would be obvious, okay, this is where the problem is. But it's so wide, it is throughout the whole island. And I feel like this is the most precious part of our historic district. So just as the buildings and the materials and the street and the sidewalks, like all of that is sort of set in a previous time. And so the lack of the rest of the fixture makes it feel out of place. Not as though there's like just a square or round pole that goes up with an LED light. Like it's not that bad, but it's like leaning that way once you make a departure from the existing fixtures. And I completely appreciate the point of not having the globe. And I think that I wish this weren't the first place that was happening, but it's something that I think, if the guts were there and maybe some sort of reflective thing right in the middle of A or B where that flame would have been, to sort of catch a spark of the light. Not a lot, but just to sort of round out the fixture and make it feel like that. I don't think that it would, hopefully it wouldn't change that U rating, but it would make it go with the whole rest of the fixture from the base to the cap. Yeah, so I think that it could be accomplished without the globe. I wish this were the last thing changing rather than the first thing changing. And
If I could respond to
Yeah.
that. So yes, there are lots of problems with light all over the island. But I feel like the town really needs to lead by example, and this is a very prominent way to do that. And if the town isn't willing to comply with the bylaw and be dark sky friendly, I think that makes it really hard to encourage other people to do that. And there are 200 on the island, so we're not just talking about Main Street, we're talking about 200 that are, well, a lot of them are spread just downtown around Main Street, and then there's a whole group in Sconset, about 35 of them. But that's making the town, if you're looking down at the town at night, that's contributing to a lot of the glow.
right.
And I feel like if the town makes this very, again, prominent commitment and leads the way, then we can get all the other people downtown to start changing their lights and following the bylaw too. But that said, I mean, again, if this is something that, I don't know if the commission needs to vote or whatever, but I need some direction to know what to go back to the manufacturer to tell them. And DPW is looking for this direction too. You guys are the expert. I think the community would look to you for your, they would defer to you on your opinion. These ones that are drawing have not been actually manufactured, so you would have to indicate, and it costs a lot to manufacture, right? So you would work with the designer and say, we want, if I'm hearing you right, Angus, on option 3, if you want that, is that called a mantle? What's it called when the mini globe? Let's call it the mini globe inside. If that would reflect some light to make it look like the old fixtures, but not increase the uplighting, that sounds like what you would prefer. Is that what you're saying, Angus?
Not necessarily.
Oh.
I was that was more of a question, just because out of the 3, that's sort of a return to there being glass below the shield.
Yeah, they told me it wouldn't change it, but
Interesting.
by their design, and I mean, these are lighting engineers. And they're making predictions, but they would build one and test it in the lab to know for sure. But they don't want to obviously build all three. They just need some guidance. And so if you guys as a commission wanted to speak directly with the representatives to know the possibilities and they can answer your questions better, I really suggest you have them to your May meeting. They're prepared to come and talk to you directly. And they'll have their sketch right there. Maybe they sketch it out for you, but they would be able to answer your questions better than I could.
I'm aware that they're probably, probably on the edge of, this is too hard, this is too much of a bother. We're putting too much money in for, not, and so, I would hate to like push the envelope to the point that we lose, our only contractor who's willing to do
Well-
these lights. And so in that respect, I would hate to keep having them come back with test designs. And I feel like I'm the only one who's really sort of speaking out for the guts.
Was there
And so-
anybody else?
Well, comment?
Yeah, I would, all of these pictures, like this picture here, that they all have the globe on. And I think without the globe, I'm trying to visualize without the globe during the daytime. It's just two of those ropey posts holding up the top and there's nothing much else to see. Is that going to be too jarring to our eyes and I hate to say modern looking, but the drawings, you don't see the globe and it
Yeah.
might look kind of weird. And so maybe you do go back to that hurricane on top just to show that it's more, if it doesn't change anything to the light. You try to picture that without the globe around it. Sort of strange.
It is, I know, it is hard to imagine. So you would go to the one on Main Street, which
Yeah.
there's a picture of that somewhere in here, my thing. Holly, find
But they all have the globe, don't they, Gail? Or is there something I've missed?
So the pilot one on Main Street does not have the globe. Holly, it's this one. There, if you can't zoom in, but that's the pilot. It does not have the globe. Now, that's a picture, so it's you have to go see it in person to see if you feel like it looks too funny. But you can go look in that and just imagine something in the middle, like they've designed.
Yeah,
And-
which might be even
But
weirder.
that
I don't
doesn't have
know.
the globe. That doesn't have the globe.
Great. I will go look when I get back.
Okay.
Yeah, and like I said, the colonial version, there's one in Wisconsin as well.
Yeah.
They didn't do a survey about that one, but
Oh, we're in Wisconsin.
it's on Clifton and Tawati.
Okay.
It was
Yeah.
put in
Oh,
by
yeah,
a
you
homeowners
should-
association. And that gives you that will show you what the colonial version would look like without the vertical glass.
Thanks.
Mary?
Hi, Mary Bergman, Nantucket Preservation Trust, and myself. It sounds like there are people on this commission who haven't even looked at the light, and I think that's a problem. I think that I'm hearing this is really coming down to like personal preference of commission members, and I'm hearing that there's a survey where 53 people responded in November, and we're an island with a pretty sizable seasonal population. I also understand that the lighting that is there is somewhat ahistorical. It's not, and by that I mean, it's not from the 1830s.
Right.
It's not from 1827. Lighting evolves, things evolve. This is going to evolve. And I think that could be a good thing, but it also sounds like for this to be successful, you need a lot more buy-in from people in the Nantucket community. And I wonder if people were presented with these three options, NPT would be happy to push that out to our mailing list or to draw more attention to it. But I just, knowing how things work here, people have to kind of, I think you're right that the town has to lead the way. I think everybody knows that there are much worse issues. I am one of those people who walks downtown at night. You can see the stars. It's walking home on Surfside Road that I have to shield my eyes. Can we criminalize LED headlights? Because I have an astigmatism and I cannot see. So I think that's why it's so hard for people, because this is really an evocative scene. And that downtown Main Street at night. And feels like going after something so significant first is difficult. And there is gonna be like, I'm imagining a current, like there will be a visceral reaction to this, even if it's the right thing to do. So I don't know, I would encourage this commission to try to do more public outreach to help this be a successful proposal. Because it doesn't sound like there's a consensus amongst the commissioners. That's me, sorry.
Thank you, Mary. Sure. Well, in response to that, I would say the requirements that are in the bylaw now were in my proposal when I went around explaining my proposal to many, many groups before the town meeting. And so people in the abstract agreed to it, you know. I do agree, like seeing it in person is important.
Yeah.
We've talked about with DPW, I've talked about like, how can we continue the survey without the students? The town came up with its own survey using the QR code, but I personally found it was lacking. They tried to, I think, oversimplify it in a way that I thought was bad. But possibly we could continue a survey of some sort. I would love to be able to continue in the summer when more people are here. The WPI students always come in the fall, and that's when they could do it.
University of Florida.
So anyway, we can try to get maybe some volunteers to continue the survey in some way if the town were amenable to that. There's a little bit of a time issue because like I said, the deadline for complying is January 1st, 2029. You have to contract for it. It takes time for these things to be manufactured, shipped here and installed, that many. The other thing that occurs to me to say is this isn't the only thing the town will be working on. I'm working with them to upgrade the lighting on all their buildings as well. And hopefully that'll be done by 2029. So this isn't just the first thing they're tackling. It's part of all the town and lighting that the WPI students inventoried. 60 buildings, I think they found had outdoor lighting.
What about the school district?
Yeah, no, I mean,
School,
Or is there an enforcement officer to go after homeowners who are in violation of this bylaw?
there is a lighting enforcement officer. The duties are held by Marcus Silverstein, who's also the zoning compliance officer. And in his defense, I think he's so busy on zoning issues that I don't know that he has time to enforce this. When I initially proposed the bylaw, I had provisions that would have a full-time lighting enforcement officer,
Right.
but I dropped those at the urging of the finance committee because they said they wouldn't be able to fill that spot right now with the affordable housing problem. So I will come back to that later if enforcement still is a problem. Right now, we are focusing on just voluntary compliance, and that's why it's so important to me to have the town lead by example, and I'm working with other organizations and other businesses to get them into compliance. Yeah, you can kick it down the road a little bit, but you're gonna miss that deadline. And then I feel like people say, oh, the town didn't even comply. Why should I comply? So, sorry, Holly, did you?
No, that was my biggest thing is and I am a firm believer.
Well, the school,
you-
sorry, the school.
Yes,
Let me talk
for
about
the
the school.
town to be lead by example, but I do think that the school district.
Definitely, they are one of the, that whole complex.
Yeah.
I think we get more complaints about them, than anything else. So they are subject to the bylaw. They have been resistant to change. I thought I would go for the easier things first with the town who, DPW, who's wanting to comply and working with me. We will get to the school though, but if we wait for the school to upgrade their lighting, you know, it's gonna be many years. And, anyway, working on it.
Yeah, I mean, I know in the recommendations from the WPI report, like they really called out the school and the landfill and the airport.
Yeah.
As like the main offenders in town. And I mean, I think I'm in the minority of the commission, but I definitely prefer the globe. Like, I think it's worth, if, you know, there's an exemption that's possible, to explore keeping those globes on the fixtures on Main Street. And you know, like, I understand obviously wanting to come into compliance, and I'm definitely, you know, a supporter of your cause, but I do think, you know, Main Street is, the lights are really, the globeless lights, I think, look visually jarring. And I think, you know, seeing the one downtown, it really does look a lot different. I do think maybe the guts could help that, but right now it's just, to me, you just sort of see this void on these little, the two little arms, and I think it I would be in favor of keeping the globes if that's possible. I think the four-sided, you know, the colonial style glassless fixtures look a little less jarring to me, I think, because maybe just because they have like the four pieces of, again, this is all just my opinion, but
Right, because there's a support on each side.
Exactly.
To me, it just looks like really clean glass.
yeah, exactly. It looks just like a little more substantial. So
So, would you want more internal elements in addition to a globe?
no, not necessarily. I mean, well, and I had a question. Are the current LED lights would those be the B1, U2, G1 as they exist? Like, we wouldn't even have to.
Well, so there's only two LEDs on Main Street.
Okay.
One at the fountain, which is the most recent one, and there's one on Upper Center
By Town
Street.
Pool, right?
Yes, and that was one they were experimenting with, and then when the fountain had to be rebuilt and that fixture was destroyed, they got a different iteration of it. And I think the one at the fountain has been tested and we know what the bug rating is. I don't know that the one at the Upper Main was tested because that was rebuilt on site,
Okay.
not taken to a lab. But I know the one at the fountain is a U2.
Okay.
So otherwise, it's pretty much the same. They put the LEDs up under the cap, they put a diffuser. It's the same color temperature. And just adding that globe took it from a U0 to a U2. Yeah, but so I will continue pursuing, you know, or encouraging Dark Sky International to make an exception, so that the town has that option. I've spent most of the winter trying to work that issue. And once they get the photometrics, hopefully they'll come back and say, okay, you can have them on Main Street so you can maintain that look. And then it becomes just an issue of, do you think more guts, let's just, you know, using shorthand, more guts are needed.
I had a question, and maybe this is gonna be more for you, Rita. More for them when they come on in May, but personally, I think the guts are important. Because I think a couple of people's points, there's a space that's in between that's not there, and historically there would have been something there. But I was curious on, like, I see that like there's different finials. I think it's too fancy, and I get that these are sort of.
In the drawing?
Yeah, in the drawing, yeah, the whale and the end.
Oh, that's all,
I figured.
that's all, they were just throwing out.
Gotcha.
Okay.
That doesn't change the bug rating, so.
Right, I
styling.
figured it wouldn't. So, I would definitely, I think, be inclined, and hopefully the commission is to have them come. Show, you know, what could be, kind of flush these out a little bit. I think first of all, I think it's important, to Mary's point of, you know, yes, I think we as a community realize that there's other areas of the island that be, the first, but I totally get having the town lead by example. It's difficult to see this with, Main Street because it's so iconic, even though we know, that these lights are, you know, not from 1846 when the Main Street was widened, but they've been here for quite a while. And they're important. I think if we did change them so drastically, there would be concerns in Northport. So I think the sensitivity, I think, is important. So I appreciate having this commission be involved with this. I think it's important. And to Mary's point, maybe this commission can assist on getting some feedback in addition.
Yeah, Holly, do you know, in terms of that QR code that
Yeah.
was there, was that done through
I think that was,
the energy office?
Communications office, Energy,
communications.
Lauren
Okay.
and Drew, Pat Node, and then I think they work with the communications team. When I went in preparing for this meeting, I wanted to refresh my memory about what the questions were, and I went and it said to the QR code, and it said it's no longer open. So
Okay.
they only did it for a month or so, and maybe maybe they took my objections to heart and are reworking it. I don't know. I haven't had an update
Okay,
recently.
so, sorry, Holly, would you be able to maybe find out,
yeah,
you know, what the status
absolutely.
of that? Because I do think, you know, even in line with the WPI recommendations, which the number one was to do more surveying. I would love, you know, and obviously like, it's definitely weekend next weekend. There's gonna be a lot of people
Yes.
right downtown, like right on Main Street. Like, can we get that QR? I would be willing to stand there and be like, hey, what do you think of this light? And like, talk to, you know, and could we maybe put in a little more
More
information
information.
about why this change of light is being proposed?
I honestly don't understand why they didn't just use the survey that the students prepared, and that came after lots of discussion and consideration and with input from professors. I think they thought it was too long somehow, but
Okay.
I think answering 3 questions versus 6 questions isn't that much different. So,
And if people care, they're probably going to want to know all the information they can find about it too.
yeah. One thing that people haven't commented on is thinking optimistically, or, you know, the Dartmouth International will agree to globes on Main Street. What do you think of having the colonials everywhere else? They're already ensconced. There's some in the downtown area, but I think the downtown area is probably, I don't know, 70% of the Victorian style. What do you guys think about switching those to colonial? So sometimes you'll have a colonial here and you have a Victorian one here. Some streets are all, I think Broad Street has the most, if I'm remembering correctly, a Victorian style.
So I lean towards the Victorian, but if it didn't have the globe, I think the colonial sort of represents the globe, you know, the glass better. So that, I know it sounds conflicted, but it's almost like without the globe, I prefer the colonial, but somehow the colonial just doesn't seem right on me.
On Main
Right.
Street, yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
I think it doesn't quite go with the mansions as well, you
Yeah.
know, the Whaling mansions as well.
yeah, thanks, Angus. Anybody else? I agree with Angus for.
With the compromise.
Yeah, I do think in terms of the lenslet or globeless, glassless fixtures, I think the colonial style look a little more appropriate. Like for some reason to me, I think because they have like the 4 vertical or near vertical, you know,
Yeah.
pieces as opposed to just the 2, it feels more, it just doesn't feel quite as modern, and it feels more like,
sure it is.
like, I think, did you say it almost looks like, oh, the glass is just.
The glass is really clean.
Yeah. So. But Summit or Sarah or Abby or.
And to that point, these are popping up elsewhere, like you can see they've been on Island Gas for a while. I bet people didn't even notice they would.
Right, is that the light up RN gas, is that the under 2,700.
I'm not
Kelvin,
sure about that.
okay.
That looks white to me,
It
but
does, yeah.
photographs can be tricky.
Okay.
When I say dark sky, I meant the glass,
Mhm.
I should have said globeless. But they might be a little too white. They might be 3,000 or 4,000.
Okay.
But in terms of no glass, to get a feel for it, they're also at the bank.
Mhm.
And a few other homeowners associations, I think, have gotten them.
Curious through you, Madam Chair, if, since having the globe, if there could be some exemption, as you're mentioning, if something from this commission would be beneficial for that. That request for the exemption.
I think I've been pretty forceful and
Okay.
I've gotten them to basically agree to what I had indicated up there, as long as the photometrics come out okay. So I'll let you know if something else is needed, but I think I've represented that point of view pretty well, that, you know, it's iconic. I've sent the picture. I said, just look at any picture, you know, pull up any picture of Nantucket at night and you'll see this. Anyway, so I think even though I personally like the ones without the globe, I've advocated strongly for them to make the exceptions, that you have that option.
Thank you for that.
Okay, so for the May meeting, do I just follow up with Holly for getting them on the agenda?
Yeah.
And they're willing to come a few days in advance if you want to meet individually. I know you can't meet as a group with them, but individually, they're willing to meet with you, walk around, look at the streetlights themselves, so. Oh, and I should say, for the record, this manufacturer is the one of the pilot. The manufacturer of the streetlights that the town already owns is called Penn Globe. And they would be a contender for this contract as well. They have not been as innovative, I guess is the word, you know, in offering options, but if the town, whatever the town does, I would think they would be asking both manufacturers for bids,
Right.
and you would choose, you know, maybe by price and quality. I don't know how procurement works exactly. But just to say, Spring City is just one of the contenders. They haven't been chosen yet. They've just been, they work all over New England and are very into dark sky lighting. And so they're very interested in helping Nantucket.
Great. Sarah?
One last question. I'm just wondering if the LED globe / whatever is ultimately chosen, is that something that could be put on the existing posts so that the posts don't have to be replaced?
Yes.
Okay.
The posts don't have to be replaced unless they're broken or, you know, rusted out or something like that. So that I don't think has to factor into the cost. I think there's some, well, I know in Wisconsin that are on wood, so they might choose to change to the metal poles at that point. But yeah, they are, even if the poles were provided by Penn Globe, I believe, but the Spring City fixtures work on their poles as well. The poles are pretty standardized.
Great, thank you. And I guess my preference would be to have, like, in the residential old historic or in the core downtown, the Victorian with or without the globe. And then the colonial kind of like anywhere else, which the houses tend to be less formal in those applications anyway.
All right, thank you. Are there any last questions or comments from anybody on the board? Okay, great. Seeing none. Well, thank you so much, Gail, for your time.
Thank you very much. And of course, if you have any questions, you know how to reach me.
Great, yeah, and we will follow up in May and hear from Spring City, and we'll keep this rolling. So thank you very much. Okay, so the next on the agenda, we have the replacement of a Walter Beinecke Memorial plaque downtown on New Whale Street, right on the water. There were pictures in the packet. This was a request made on behalf of the Beinecke family. So Holly showing the existing plaque that's there. Oh,
Yes.
And do you have?
I do have, so, I don't know, you all know, Glenn, Bormanson, I can never say his last name, yes, sorry, Glenn, didn't mean to do that. He has been working with the Beinecke family. And, this is the plaque that you see downtown, right there, basically on the strip between Old South Wharf and, Straight Wharf. And this is what it looks like now. This was installed in, I think, 2000. There's some historic photographs. I say historic because, you know, it's been that time ago, of when they were dedicating this little monument. This is what they're proposing to fix. So you can see it's a lot different. You have a background. You actually see the Congregational Church. And this actually, corresponds with the First Congregational Church's 300th anniversary. So something that they're also going to be involved with. And Glenn says the idea is not only to replace, it's only to replace the bronze plaque. It's with the new one. It's not to touch the rock that it's on. And let's see, the quality of the artwork. The text remains the same. You can see how it basically has got his dedication there. Same exactly as it is right now. Sorry, this is. And then, that they added the brass relief of architecture and natural environment, which is obviously what, Walter is dedicated for. And all the work that he's done here. They're gonna, use the same base. And they want to have a rededication ceremony in October. So I recommended them. First of all, I wanted you all to be aware of it and hopefully give blessings on this. And then they're also going to go to the Sign Advisory Council to get their blessing as well. But I just before HTC, but wanted to bring it to you all's attention. So I don't know if there's any questions on that.
Great, thank you, Holly. Any comments, questions?
Sorry, myself.
My only comment, sorry, Rita, but my only comment would be as long as the Beinecke families wants to do this, then I'm okay with it. It's great. It is more detailed and looks terrific, I think. So thanks for bringing it to us.
Thank you, comment, Mary.
Mary Bergman, Nantucket Preservation Trust, and myself. Is this a sign? Does this really need sign committee approval?
Historic marker is in the sign book.
Okay,
Yeah, I've talked to Nikki about it and
okay.
we both, I actually did some research. I could not find where they originally opined on it
Yeah.
before. Couldn't find anything, but I do think it'd be important for them
Okay,
to.
so this falls under historic marker and not public art. Okay.
Yes.
Just want to be, I just didn't want to see this commission having to review every single
Oh,
memorial or whatever.
yeah, no,
Okay,
no. But I really wanted to, you know, we all, I think, have
Yeah.
appreciation for Mr. Beinecke and what he's done. And I thought it would be important for this commission to
oh, yeah.
see
Great.
it.
I
So-
thank you.
And in lieu of, you know, at least a body taking a look at it, but after talking to Nikki, I think it's important for it to go to the Sign Advisory Council, so.
I appreciate them using the same spot, the same size, and this is a more serious picture
Yes.
or depiction of Walter Beinecke. The other one's just a little bit goofy. I mean, it's kind of
Yeah.
happy-go-lucky, but still. So if this is the desire of the Beinecke family, I certainly am fine with it.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I
Okay, well-
agree too. And I agree, Angus, this picture is more flattering and more
Yes.
appropriate.
This one is just scary.
There.
Yeah, it's a little tricky. But yeah, I agree. So does, what did Glenn want, like a letter of support from us or just, I mean, I think you can send him an email to say, yeah, we think it's good and he can pass that along to the sign committee.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would probably be the best case, and when it does go to the Sign Advisory Council, I'll probably attend, just on their behalf as well, to kind of emphasize that this is important. So hopefully there's no issue with that.
Great. Well, that all sounds good and we'll look
Awesome.
forward to that rededication in October.
Yes.
Okay, then moving on to the next item, is our historic resource surveys. Holly, you have an update from the University of Florida on the West Monomoy neighborhood survey.
Yes, so this is directly from Erica Mullen with University of Florida. She said since kicking off the West Monomoy Neighborhoods Survey Phase 1, the team has held the first community meeting and mapping exercise, which they documented 330 parcels within the survey area using the GIS survey tool, which is something that she has shown me and hopefully be able to look at it more. Conducted preliminary research on each surveyed property, created a database of each property outlining the rough date of construction, character defining architectural features, existing research, and an initial pass at whether the property would qualify for the intensive level documentation, which is gonna come out with those Form Bs. The team also outlined a context statement for the neighborhood and identified key themes and time periods of significance. There are currently 161 properties that have been preliminary identified as possibly meeting the criteria to warrant a further intensive level form base on initial construction date, association with the identified neighborhood context theme, or for its architecture. And the next steps for the project would include completing the neighborhood context statement in the coming weeks and working with local community members to finalize lists of those intensive level properties. Beginning in June, the team will work with PIN students to fully research and document a selection of those properties identified as part of the Finding New Guinea summer research. So hopefully that will be a great thing. And obviously this commission will be involved with that. Looking forward to the next PIN students coming to Nantucket. So that's where we're at with that project.
Great. All right, sounds good. Not seeing any questions from anybody. Great. Okay, so then next we have a sewer force main project, sidewalk and curbing replacement. This is something that sort of popped up since our last meeting. We received, well, Holly, you heard from Marcia Fader, a homeowner on Liberty Street, 36 Liberty, about an issue with the grade of the sidewalk and the curbing adjacent to Marcia's property, which was leaving, it's considerably like about 8 inches lower than it was, which is leaving the roots of Marcia's privet hedge exposed. So there was a proposed solution from the consultants who are, the consultants who are working on the project to build like a short brick retaining wall along the property, which they proposed in an email. Holly and I went out and looked at the property with Marcia. We didn't feel like that was a historically appropriate solution. Marcia didn't want that either. And then just, I think yesterday or the day before, could you share the email? Or?
So basically, it sounds like Marcia and whoever's going to be doing the work came up with a solution, which all the work is going to be on her property. But it's not anything that would warrant HDC. That's kind of where the kicker is. Sewer force main project is specifically within the town right of way. But having the fact that the sidewalks in the grade did drop down, it sounds like they've come up with a solution which is gonna make it so her hedges are not going to die.
Yes, and so that'll involve taking out a course of the sidewalk brick and then installing like black landscape edging that'll be partially exposed, which obviously isn't a historic material, but I think is less visually intrusive than if there were like a weird short brick wall there.
That's what I was concerned with the brick, especially with the photograph that was sent. I said, no, not appropriate. So, that's kind of where we're with that particular project. We want to obviously bring it to the commission's attention. I do have a little bit of news on Winter Street. If anybody's been walking downtown, they're in the process of, fixing, bringing it back to where it was. David is going to keep me posted on when they're gonna be putting the, cobblestones down. Because remember, they had cobblestones and asphalt on top, and with this project, we're gonna be bringing back those cobblestones, put back historically appropriate. So, when I find out, I'll let the board know. I think that would be really cool to watch, actually, them to put them back, so. Soon, yeah.
I'm curious about those cobblestones and the blacktop going, with the was there like crushed gravel or something that went in between? I'm just wondering what kept the blacktop from sticking to the
Right.
cobblestones.
I don't know, but they have been able to
For-
take them, yeah.
Yeah, I imagine
That's
there must
great.
have
They
been
were-
some intermediate
There
layer
must have
there.
been, there
Yeah.
must have been.
I was hoping to catch the visual of, every time I go by, I sort of look in and see, but of them taking I kind of picture them taking up the blacktop and then there's the cobblestone. But, yeah, it kind of went from blacktop to just ground. So I think I missed that stage.
My understanding it's been documented, so
Yeah.
maybe I can ask David if they can provide photographs for that, because it'd be really cool to see.
When it's all done, it'll be great to see
Yes.
all the transformed sort of before, during and after. As to, the edging at 36 Liberty, yeah, I kind of figured that it would be, better to keep the brick as is and sink the hedge to the appropriate grade in relation to the sidewalk, so there wouldn't need to be an edging. And the metal edging just feels so, I don't know, well, it's just a different character than what we have on all of our sidewalks. It's more modern, sort of treatment of grade change or material change. So, I mean, it's better than a little brick curb, which really seems suburban. But I'm sorry that we sort of ended up in a situation where we had to punt because I remember just the depth of detail of every section of every street and sidewalk of what is going to be at what level in relation to another thing, and that all this was sort of figured out in advance. So I'm a little bit at a loss of like, how did we get to this point where, oh no, what happened? So.
I share the same exact feeling. I don't know, but hopefully, better.
Yeah, I will add though something positive that Holly and I did see when we were there on Liberty Street, but they were installing curbing on a different section of, a little bit further down Liberty, and there was no cement to be seen.
Yes.
So that was good to see, following the specifications that some, the granite curbs not be set in a bed of cement. So
That's great.
we did see it there. I have, noticed cement in between curbs, like especially on Center Street, that seems to already be failing.
Between Liberty and the Monument seems like the area that most people feel at liberty to just drive up onto the curb, onto the sidewalk. And I wonder if now the curb is high enough that will kind of keep people from doing it.
Yeah, we'll see. But, okay, so there's a update on that. Then, so we have, I wanted to bring up some articles that will be at town meeting, that I thought were, had a sort of distinct historic preservation concern. The first of those was a zoning change on North Water Street, changing a few parcels from, the residential old historic zoning to commercial downtown. this did have a positive recommendation from the planning board. And basically, sorry, Holly, could you maybe pull up the zoning use chart just to reference,
Sure.
in terms of, it's a difference in height, I know, as well as ground cover going from, ROH to CDT, and it might also just be helpful to look at the map. I'm sorry, sorry that wasn't in the packet.
No problem. Let me see if I can get that.
Yeah, so I mean, the main thing is that I think the ground cover ratio goes from in ROH, it's 50%, and commercial downtown is 75%. There's no change to the front setback. The frontage goes down, but that doesn't impact any of these lots, I think, because of the frontage that they have. And then am I right, Holly? Does it you can go taller in CDT than ROH, right?
Yes. So. I was looking, what are the addresses? Sorry, I don't know. I don't have that thing up. So it's 3 properties on North Water.
7,
So-
9, and 11.
and
yeah.
9 and 11.
Thanks, Abby. So here's 11. There's these 3. So, I mean, it's contiguous. There wouldn't be any spot zoning. That's the proper terminology. So it does make sense from that perspective. I don't know if maybe Abby could allude on it a little bit more. But I believe this is where the inns are that are there.
The brass lantern is
Yeah.
there, yeah.
Yeah. It's like you said, Holly, it's really just to bring them into the contiguous zoning. So we have been cleaning up various areas around the island with these types of things, so.
And that's based on the fact that those are the uses that they already have.
Well,
Yeah,
only are all of them in commercial use right now, or I thought it was just 11?
yeah, but if 11 is, then the other 2 aren't, but those are the ones that are contiguous, like you couldn't put 11 in.
Right,
You
no,
couldn't put it without doing the other ones.
no, I understand.
Yeah. Brass lantern.
Yes.
Okay.
So 9 is the periwinkle.
There we go.
Oh, that's
Thank you.
better.
Yep.
Just love that. Periwinkle.
But like you said, I mean, that's the usage that they're already using, and it's contiguous to the zoning, so the goal is to just make it consistent.
It's, yeah, I would say it's more on the use than anything else.
Yeah, I guess the reason why I put this on the agenda and to flag it for the committee is really that increase in the potential ground cover on these parcels. And when we're talking, we've been talking about, like the Easy Street flood barrier, flooding and, resiliency efforts. We know that it's better to have less ground cover and more permeable surfaces on the lot. And obviously this is just a small, three small lots downtown. But that was my real concern here, but.
My concern would be about the density, the change of the streetscape, the height, if there's a change there. The HPC supersedes the zoning, but still, I think to a certain degree, they feel the pressure from, well, zoning says it's okay, and so Yeah, that would be my concern, is just sort of the change of the character of this. Of the space, and as you say, the permeable land. Especially since this is sort of the drain from the top of the hill.
It is.
Mhm.
It is FEMA flood. Where did I move emails over here? If you. Yeah, that's the line. 88 on the back end.
Okay. Well, it sounds like we're sort of split between, you know, support and not for this, so we can just sort of make, if it gets called, we can, you know. We can move on to the next.
What it well, it looks to me like 11 is not contiguous. You know, I mean, you could cut through 7 and 9 and not include 11. If you're
No,
just
but
talking,
11's the one that's being
Yeah,
used commercially, so it's like you wouldn't change it because like Holly pointed out, you can't do spot zoning, so it's like we wouldn't change one without the others because you need to do it.
but this was not a request from them. It's not like they want to go up another floor, or with sea level rise, do they want to go up 6 feet so they don't flood?
Correct. This is really just putting it in line with what their use is today already. And not changing anything else.
Yeah, okay, so they didn't ask for it to get, you're just, as you say, trying to clean up.
Yeah.
well, I do believe they were in front of the ZBA looking for changes that were not favorably looked upon because of the zoning. And so I think that was earlier, or maybe in late 2024, but
Are you saying that it's not about making their pre-existing non-conforming situation conforming, that it's wanting to expand in a way that would be looked more favorably if the zoning changed?
I think that may be the case, but I don't know for sure.
Yeah, and it's hard to assume things too.
Yeah, I wouldn't make that assumption without knowing.
Yeah, but it's a possibility. This one at R40. I pulled that one up. This makes sense to me.
Well,
Why?
that's because it's the land bank.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I understand why it's even R40 in the C of ROH to begin with.
So I think that if I'm, well, and Abby, maybe you remember this, if I remember correctly, that was sort of done because like all of, or like the majority of land bank properties are in R40, so they did that like, oh, because the land bank owns it, and now they're realizing it really shouldn't be.
Yeah, you are correct,
Yeah,
Rita. So
okay.
it's again, like, honestly, these are just cleanups where it seemed like a good idea at the time, but now when we want more consistency across areas, we don't want there to be, in this example, like a random parcel with one zoning and not the same as others. So.
You didn't even have that one on there, but anyway.
Yeah, no, it's
Sorry.
it's okay, yeah, that's weird. I mean, really, any zoning could be requested.
This one, I think we would want to support.
Yes. I would agree, but. Okay, anyway, well, so we can. Move on, I guess, to, so Article 65, the zoning bylaw amendment for pre-existing non-conforming uses, structures and lots. This is the 4181L, related bylaw introduced by Emily Molden, which would remove the pre-existing non-conforming status that gets transferred to lots that are, when there is a 4181L subdivision, which, if for those not familiar, if a structure has two or more, or excuse me, if a lot has two or more structures on it that predate 1955, when we adopted local zoning, they can be subdivided by right, even if even if they wouldn't meet the normal conditions necessary for subdivision, and the pre-existing non-conforming status of the parcel transfers onto the new parcels. Which is unlike anywhere else in the state. So this is to change that, and I think we have seen a number, Angus, at the HEC, we've seen a number of proposals, applications for demolition of these, which by virtue of the fact that they were able to do a 4181L subdivision, we know that the structure on the lot is historic. We see things like garages, older secondary dwellings, other, barns and things being applied for demos, and then I would say a lot of problematic applications in front of the HGC after that. Would you say that's a fair assessment, Angus?
Yes, I am, huge kudos to, Emily Molden for bringing this forward. It didn't come soon enough.
Yeah, well,
I'm so happy that it's coming up. This seemed like a sneaky sort of land grab for development, and I'm happy to see that it might be coming to an end.
yes, and this is something that Emily had proposed, essentially the same bylaw a couple of years ago. It did get majority support, but it fell short of 2/3 by just a handful of votes. So that time it did not have a positive recommendation from the planning board, I believe. This time it
It
does.
does. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what I was gonna say. We recognize the gap, and the planning board worked really closely with Emily to come up with a solution. And I think a lot of times people think the planning board is like pro development or pro any of those things, but usually the biggest concern is whether or not it's legal, as we are regulatory. And that's been a big issue, where when people want us to say no, if it's someone's legal right, we cannot. And so this is why they worked really closely with Emily and were able to come up with this. But, I just want people to understand, because I think sometimes people demonize the planning board as like, oh, they're pro-development or whatever. But what people don't realize is if we deny something and it is legal, we will get sued and we will lose, and it'll still be allowed. So we have to work within our legal, what's legally binding and what is allowed. And 4181L is obviously, it's in the law. And so we can't, again, just deny them just because we don't like them. Or even if it is doing something that's unfortunate. And so we are all very supportive of this, just because Emily did a lot of work, but the planning board did a lot of work with her to make sure that it's legal, so we will not get sued.
Yeah, so I think it's very great that this is sort of a loophole being closed, and I do think this is likely to be called.
Might be.
Potentially, and if it is, perhaps if we might take a vote today to say that the NHC is in favor of this article, so if it does get called,
I think that's a good idea.
I think myself or Holly or one of us could get up at town meeting to say, yes, the historical commission is in favor of this, along with, the planning board. And
I'll make the motion that the historical commission supports this article.
Great.
Second.
Great, so motion made by Abby and seconded by Sarah. Abby, on your motion?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
Clement?
Aye.
Angus?
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. Kathy, sorry, is that George? Under a different name, Kathy ASP Nantucket? If it is, okay, well, I didn't want to miss anybody, but okay, so that's unanimous vote in favor.
And I did just want to mention, just to clarify for the record, it was in 1955 when the subdivision control law was enacted. Zoning wasn't until 70.
Oh, excuse me.
72. But they do go hand in hand. This is fixing it because the subdivision control law obviously is under the state law. And that's one thing I think people were, oh, well, the planning board needs to do something, the planning board needs to do something. Well, it's an exemption under the subdivision control law under the state. Whereas this is actually trying to fix the issue under zoning. So therefore, that's why this is gonna be a special permit. So I think it was a great, and I am very happy to see it, so.
Yes. Okay. Great. So next up was article number 71, a general bylaw amendment for streets and sidewalks, which, so it adds an exemption to our sort of the general code governing streets and sidewalks and signs that would allow for the town to, so it allows installation of traffic control devices using LED or other lights in a speed feedback sign to display a driver's speed, or in a portable changeable message sign that displays messages to inform drivers of changing road conditions. We obviously have this bylaw which limits the and bans the use of these sorts of signs at the moment. We did see there was a pilot LED speed feedback sign on Milestone Road coming into Sconset Village previously. Does anyone have any thoughts about this?
I thought that this was a temporary thing and happy about that. But I guess my question is, has it made a difference? I mean, safety first, right? But it is so out of character on an island with really no lights, no traffic lights. And so, I mean, I would hate to see that proliferate to other parts of the island. Unless there's like, a hugely significant improvement in traffic safety.
Yeah, Madam Chair,
Yes, thank you.
I definitely see people looking over at that sign on Milestone Road. They look over and they check their speed, and then I feel like they might slow down, but then they might speed up again. So I do see him looking at it to double check. But I don't know that it's really changed anything or how you could judge that, if it's worked or if it's not. So I agree it's out of character, but people are looking at it.
Thank you.
I
Okay,
speak as a
Gail.
member of the public, because I live in Wisconsin, and I have noticed people slowing way down, especially the trucks, and I think they think it's actually a ticketing camera, maybe. I don't know, but I've been really impressed at how people slow down. I know it makes me slow down. Whether they speed up after they get past it, I don't know how you determine that. But I've seen presentations by I guess it's the police chief or whoever monitors a sign, where they are collecting data, and so they are using the data to decide where to place police for ticketing. So so she will probably get up and speak in favor of it, because I think she's a big proponent, and what I've heard is they want to put it like near the school and stuff to get people to slow down. But to respond, because I am a Sconseter, I do see people slowing way down.
Yeah.
If I may, I did
Yes.
want to mention that the select board does have a comment in the warrant specifically that I think would be pertinent for the commission just to acknowledge. That says that the neighborhood's character and general aesthetic for any exact placement will be taken into account. Because it says it would be for pretty much on any town or county neighborhood location, that's the entire island that they could place it in.
Yeah.
So I didn't know if maybe that would be something that this commission could weigh in on. I believe Mike is involved with the placement of these, so I think, maybe that could be just a simple request to Mike to let us know. if this does pass, I don't know. Any other comments on it?
I guess, well, and I was wondering, you know, these portable changeable message signs there's no like potential time limit, like are we anticipating them I mean, I know they are being used. Like there's one for the sewer force main work, you know, advising people to seek alternate routes. But seems like,
Yeah, like the one in Wisconsin, I would hate for that to just be there indefinitely. I mean, it seems like they could identify the issue. And then deal with it, whether it's someone getting ticket, or maybe there could just be a camera, you know, a speed camera, which would be a lot less. Which I think would be a deterrent, but less visible. I don't know.
does anyone feel very strongly that we as a commission should either, you know, recommend an amendment to this or be in favor of it?
The issue is really whether it is a safety, if it slows people down. I would see it more at use at like around the schools. And those big signs that say, you know, sewer work, those are definitely portable. They're going to move at some point because they're on wheels. I would hate to see the one in Wisconsin proliferate, but if it proves to work, I don't know how you judge whether it works or not. But I'd like to see some benefit for it before it becomes permanent and proliferates.
Whatever bylaw we already have in that is happening now. I mean, there's a reason for it, that we don't allow these things, but where does it stop? Streetlights? I mean, I think a case could probably be made for a lot of lights and things that we're not used to on the island that you know, that could be implemented here. So I think we have to be careful. It's a slippery slope.
Okay, well, we'll see what happens with this one. Yeah, okay. And then the last two on here, Articles 101 and 102, these are both introduced by Stephen Welch. They both got a recommendation of take no action. And both of them were sort of contingent, I believe, contingent upon Stephen providing like additional information about the specifics of our proposal, which to my knowledge, he has not yet done. Okay, so I guess there's not really much for us to discuss on these ones then. Great, so we can keep moving and we'll see if there's any change before town meeting, but we wouldn't be able to vote on them. So then we had commission goals. Oh, it looks like we've lost Abby,
Yes.
so we'll, I guess, wait on that. Oh, I also just realized I didn't put the minutes in the packet.
Oh.
So I guess we
Okay.
will wait to approve the March 21st. I'm sorry, everybody. I knew it seemed short this month, because I forgot the minutes. Okay, so we can hold that over to our May meeting. Is there any other business? No.
Abby's so quick with the minutes. I usually look at them as soon as she's done, and then like a month goes by and then it's time to
Right,
approve them.
and I know I looked at them when she sent them, but I think for the purpose of open meeting law, we shouldn't vote on them since they weren't in the packet.
Next time.
Yeah,
Correct.
yeah, so we'll do that next meeting.
May 16th, I think it is.
Yes, that sounds right. Just, yeah, so, there's again, part 2 of that window NAPC webinar, which we should have all been, emailed about, and then there's another training coming up in May. I'm not sure if, Holly, did you see this with the National Park Service, technical
Oh,
preservation services? So this will be, it's based on the preservation brief number 51, which is building codes for historic and existing buildings, planning and maximizing their application, which was published last year, last June. So this is more information about that, that preservation brief. And there is one webinar on May 2nd and another on May 21st. They're both the same. It's not like a 2-part thing.
yeah.
So those I think could be very interesting, especially with, I know at the HDC, you're seeing more historic determinations because of the stretch code that statewide, but you know, Nantucket has adopted. So I am registered and I can send this out to the commission if anyone else would like to sign up, which would be a good one.
Yes,
Thank you for
please
catching
do.
on, yeah.
Please do, yeah, thank you.
And remember, let me know on your webinars and your education. We want to put that on the CLG's report.
Great. And anybody else, any other business? Any-
Motion to adjourn.
Second,
All right, motion to adjourn made by Angus, seconded by Clement. Angus,
Aye.
Clement,
aye.
Sarah? Couldn't hear
Aye.
you, but
Aye.
okay, perfect. And I'm an I as well. So thank you all very much. I'll see you next month.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Aye, thanks.
Bye.